So that's the neat thing, buyer. If you buy a house now in May, by October, you're going to make 50 grand. So educate people. It's all about the perspective. We've been kind of talking lately due to the changing market. We've been talking a lot about different, buyer scripts, buyer consultation scripts, setting proper expectation scripts, and how we're having to change as agents in this new market that is pivoting up, right? We've got, there's shifts in the market. This one's kind of shifting up, right? We've talked about things like how we have to explain what's happening in the market, especially how we have to talk about trying to kind of educating our clients. So many people are thinking real estate goes up and down and that it's going to go down pretty soon. And so we've had to explain to them that's not how real estate works. That real estate just goes up. And only a couple times in history, it went down a very little bit for a really small amount of time. And then we've had to educate. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions in real estate amongst the agent community, right? Is that real estate goes up and down in value. And for those people that have just been in the market for the last 10 or 15 years, I can see why you think that. It's just been a unique 10 or 15 years. Usually it just keeps going up. And when it goes down, it's very quick and very brief. So we need to be able to show the graphs we talked about last week to educate people. And then of course, how we write our offers. We've talked about different techniques for writing offers. We talked about releasing earnest money deposits upon acceptance, doing quick increase deposits after like 10 to 12 days. We've talked about showing property only after we get acceptance, unless someone is collecting offers and they've told you that you could get in and show it over the weekend and we're not going to present offers till like Sunday night or Monday night. We've talked about that. But if they're not doing that, I would write that offer first, because that house will be gone, even if the broker says, or the listing agent says, oh, don't worry, you've got time, go take a look at it first. Because oftentimes by the time you go look at it, it's already sold. And that happens because sometimes they sell it themselves. Not usually. We as agents like to always blame them for that. But usually that's not what happens. They didn't drag their feet just so they could represent the buyer too. But we love to say that. But usually what happens is the seller just gets impatient. The seller just says, you know what, take that offer, I'm done. Because the seller's not a business person. The seller's a teacher, the seller's a fireman, the seller's someone that doesn't like that type of stress and just wants to be done emotionally. So they just tell that listing agent to take the offer. And then all of a sudden you get 100 buyer's agents that are mad at the listing agent and accusing the listing agent of dragging their feet so they could represent the buyer too. So understand that's usually on you. You've got to write that offer, okay? And that's what happens in 2004, 2005, 2006. Get the offer written. Then try to get in if you can, but get the offer written so you're in you're playing the game. If not, on the buyer side, you're going to lose out a lot on these, and it's going to mentally tax you, and you're mentally going to get frustrated. If you're not doing this already, most areas in the country are. Make sure, think about setting the expectations on why we make that earnest money deposit, like a $500 deposit, non-refundable upon acceptance. Okay, and talk about setting those expectations. We've talked about the buyer scripts to do all these things. So that's a little bit of a recap for you all as all of you are logging on. Now that some of you got logged on, I'm going to show you a new graph that my team has been researching because we're trying to get, I've shown this to Albert. I know Albert liked it. He's the only person I gave this.
I love it. And yeah, I didn't show it to anybody yet, so I didn't steal your thunder.
Albert and I, for more than a decade, have had a dorky geek out infatuation with data and how we can make it into graphs. And, would you say that's accurate, Albert? Like we like to make
yeah, no, specifically actually, how do you take really complicated ideas and make them simple to visualize? Like you don't have to explain it. It just makes sense.
Yeah. Numbers into pretty colorful graphs is what I call it. And so my team has been working on this a lot, and we've gotten very addicted to the U.S. Census Bureau website to pull data and a few other sources as well too. And we're working on some more for you. But here's one I would definitely have in your buyer consultation appointments, right? I would definitely make this something we discuss, and I think you're going to be doing it for the next probably 5 years. This is kind of a go-to graph, and I'm going to show it to you here. And this is, and I've shown you homes built per decade before, but we overlaid that with population growth per decade, right? So in blue, we can show the homes built every decade and how it's pretty much in alignment with population growth. They're pretty close until 2010. And in 2010, we built almost no homes, but our population, I mean, we made babies, we made baby, left and right, okay? So all of a sudden you can see supply and demand get way out of whack. And guys, when that happens over the period of a decade, you're gonna hear a lot of people out there that are pretty ignorant to these facts saying things like, well, supply's just low right now because of COVID, because they can't buy plywood. So because of it, builders can't build, which I guess is true. It's a little salt on this huge gaping wound I'm showing you right now. But it's not like once that problem fixed, prices are gonna go down again. I mean, we've got years and years to make up for this deficit here. So the fact that real estate values are gonna drop because demand is gonna somehow drop so low is crazy, because demand, I mean, just naturally by humans' need to provide shelter over their offspring, that natural survival instinct that makes housing an absolute vital commodity to survive and reproduce, right? And part of survival is food, water, and shelter. We gotta have houses, and we don't have enough of them to keep up with our population, which is gonna drive prices up. So any basic animal, any mammal that can read text should be able to understand this one. You should be able to explain this one. If you're waiting for housing prices to drop, there is no way that that is going to happen. These are the cheapest house prices you are ever going to see right now. And if you cannot convey that to your client, I'm not sure you're the guy for the job, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you cannot give your client the material information they need to make informed decisions, we're saying we don't have the ability to do our due diligence. So you got to get your head around this, because this is really, really clear. This is why all the smart money, all the hedge funds, all the real estate investment trusts, they're buying everything they can because they see this. But the normal mom and pop, husband and wife, teacher married to a fireman, they're not trained to see this like they are. So you've got to be the translator. You've got to turn the dumb money into the smart money. So that's why this needs to be a buyer consultation. We need to show this discrepancy. And you can very easily tell them why this happened. What happened is why we went from building 27 million homes a year pretty much steadily for the last 50 years and then dropped down to 6 million was because of a recession that happened that put almost all national home builders out of business. And the ones that stayed in business were spooked and stopped building 1,000 houses at a time and started building 5 houses at a time. And quite frankly, they're still spooked because they're not much more intelligent than the firemen. If you've ever worked with a builder, you can pick up what I'm putting down. They're slow and scared until it's too late. Make sense?
Yes, I love that, Brian. That's a very strong chart. I mean, because, and it's one I kind of relate to my clients. I kind of bring when my grandfather bought his house, and I think he overpaid for it. He paid $56,000 for it, 2 plus 1 back. Yeah. When you know what I mean. He overpaid, yeah. And so I kind of relate that. And then also when my mom bought her property, and I tell him, look, I go, the properties are just going to they're just going to keep going. So I love that comparison, and I love that way where you're right. In 2010, I was in the business in 2010, and I remember builders just stopping in their trails of building. Right. And that was not a very smart move. I mean, obviously they probably couldn't build at that time, for whatever reason, but we're definitely getting the impact that's impacting us now. And it's just, like you said, if there are any kind of smart mammal, Mama Bear is going to come out and she's going to go buy shelter no matter what. So I love that. I love those comments. Thanks for sharing.
Very nice. Way to bring in my furry mammal metaphor and bring that back. I appreciate that. Because thanks, Jesse. Because I think that's real important to remember. Because a lot of people, you're going to start to hear things like new construction starts are up. You're going to start to hear the media do that. New construction starts are up 20% over last year. It's like, great. So last year we built, 1 million homes, and now we're up to 1.2 million when we need 20 million. You see what I'm saying? The media loves to say that. They love to play with numbers to say, oh goodness, here comes, we're going to have too much construction. Guys, I believe that we're going to need construction so bad that the current administration is going to start subsidizing builders to build more houses to make home ownership more affordable before the next presidential election. I'm not saying they should, so don't like shoot me. That's not my thing. But I bet you they do. I bet you we start spending federal money to get more housing because of the crisis we're going to have here. Because prices are just going to get too expensive, and too big of a chunk of the population is not going to be able to afford to buy houses. And all the homes are going to keep getting bought up because of real estate investment trusts, flipping companies, hedge funds, things like that. And, we've had like 70-75% home ownership in America. And I do predict that's going to go down to about 50%, but demand's going to still stay there at a very high level because homeowners aren't necessarily buying the home, institutions are. Does that make sense? So I think this is going to be such a big supply problem. And I mean, here now we can't build houses for 1 or 2 more years because of, labor shortages coming out of COVID and things like that. I mean, that just gets this thing even worse. That means we got to go further backwards before we can go forwards, if that makes sense. So these are things you need to do to educate your clients. They need to see this and hear this so they get the confidence and the intelligence to move forward. Because if they're waiting for things to get cheaper because of your inability to educate them, they might be part of the 25% of America that does not get to achieve the American dream of home ownership. So your lack of ability and confidence could very much cause people to not achieve the American dream. And I am dead freaking serious with that. So you better believe in this, guys. And you better convey this, because a bad agent can really mess someone up when housing prices are jumping. They may be renting for the rest of their life, throwing their money away, digging that hole deeper, because someone could not educate what the stupid mass media loves to say, like housing bubbles and housing crashes and construction's up. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just amazing. Construction's up 20% from last year. We need construction to be up about 3,000% from last year. And even then, it would take us about 8 years to catch up with demand. That's how deep of a hole we're in on supply. So get used to low inventory markets where we write offers before we show property. Get used to it. You're going to love it when you get used to it. Jesse, thank you. Anybody else have any thoughts, comments, questions on that? Otherwise, I might move on. But I'd love to, any other questions, thoughts about buyers in this market right now, scripts, dialogues, all that kind of stuff. Any question about buyer scripts? I know we've been pounding this one home lately, but you guys have been asking questions like crazy lately.
So I have a real quick question with buyers. So I have a client that I've been working with about a year, and I felt like I, done a pretty good job of telling him how the market is, that, houses are going to go up, blah, 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 all this stuff. So we finally get an offer accepted, and now they tell me they want to cancel because they're not sure. So is there anything else like I should basically cover, or should I go over everything? Because I've basically kind of gone over what you've gone over right now, with the housing shortage, price is going to be going up, the next at least 5 to 10 years. And we got an offer accepted yesterday, and then this morning they texted me that they wanted to cancel.
Okay. Anybody want to chime in on this one first, what they would do in this scenario? Anyone want to take a shot?
May I?
Anybody, yes. Who said yes?
Jesse, this is Jesse Gomez.
Oh yeah, go for it, Jesse.
A lot of the times, the client, they need to be reassured that they're doing the right thing. And how do we do that as agents? And how do they take our word for it? And I think one of those charts, if you have a spread, that chart that you just saw right now from Brian, you would want to print that up. And maybe the one I liked is the one you did last week, Brian. So you definitely want to show charts. This is with a time when the charts, that one's perfect. I love that one. This one here, this is real data. This is not something you're inventing. So when you share this kind of charts to them, they're making the right decision, and to get an offer accepted in this market, it's a blessing. I really don't like working with buyers right now. I'm really going after listings. Buyers, to get offers accepted are so difficult. And I don't know if this is the first offer your client wrote and then they got accepted. And if they did, I applaud you as an agent, because that is tough to do, to get their offer accepted on the first one. If they've written several offers and they got bidded out, then you should have a taste of the market that it's not that easy to get an offer accepted. And yes, if they are the highest offer, that they go over the list price, congratulate them. But they gotta see this. They gotta see charts like this to make sure that they feel comfortable to push forward. And that's all you can do. And at that point, if they don't want to do forward, then hey, you did your job as a buyer's agent. But congratulations on that offer accepted, to get an offer accepted on top of that.
Excellent. Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
I would first debrief them, let them get off their shoulders what their concerns are, because they may have a special way of expressing themselves about their concerns, which might be a little bit different than just general obvious concerns. Yeah.
Right. This could just be buyer's remorse, right, Dave? Like, and that's a common thing.
Yeah. I mean, they might end up telling you a story about their uncle that did something 20 years ago. And you need to give them your time so they feel they can just get it off their chest. And then you can deal with that issue. So half the battle is listening and having them get it off their chest, and then deal with whatever particular concern it is.
Can I chime in as well?
Sure. Go for it, Walter.
I tell you, one of the things, and you mentioned buyer's remorse, and I think one of the things that we're finding a little bit right now is people go and now they start telling all their friends and everybody, hey, we got an offer accepted. We were buying a house. We're going to move. And everybody's out there telling them, why would you do that now? Prices are so high. You know, your payments, you're going to be upside down right away. And it's buyer's remorse, and they're starting to doubt themselves.
Scary.
Because everybody's telling them that the market is saying the inventory is low and people are overbidding and everything. And a lot of times what we're doing is we're looking at our folks and explaining, when you buy a car, you don't want to talk about the monthly payment. You want to talk about how much the car is worth. When you buy a house, the most important thing about buying a house is what is that monthly payment. And as long as you can make that monthly payment, then it's a good house if you like the house. The cost, even if the market drops a little bit, and we don't foresee that, but if it does, so be it. It's going to bounce back over a period of time. So as long as you can make your payment, and they just need that reassurance. They need somebody to say, half the people out there are saying, oh, it's a seller's market, don't be a buyer. And the other half of the people are saying, I'm going to buy right now because it's only going to get better.
I like it.
Positive.
I agree 100%. Thank you, Walter. I think that's great too. Thank you, Dave. Anybody else want to chime in?
I think something we're saying too is oftentimes, unless we're close family, people aren't really going to be completely honest about their financial position. And so what's going to happen is that if they approach a place where, oh my gosh, I can't afford this market, I physically can't do this deal, they're probably not going to say, I can't afford it. They're probably going to say, it's too scary, I'll wait till it cools off. And potentially that's not really the actual concern that's behind they're actually trying to do you a favor. They're trying to say, I can't perform, and I don't have the courage to say that out loud. So I'll come up with a market consideration instead. And so sometimes when a buyer's taking themselves out of the running, it's not necessarily a bad thing. They might be trying to help you out.
True. I like that. I think either way, I want to have another buyer consultation right away to tap back into their motivation. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. And I'm going to do exactly what Dave said. I'm going to listen, right? I'm going to listen. I want to find out what's freaking them out. And then I'm going to tap right back into motivation with my needs analysis. Why do we want to buy a house in the first place? What was the reason? Like, I want them to get re-motivated because they forgot it. So we want to sit down and have that buyer consultation, and we want to ask them the questions. Let's do a needs analysis. Why do we want to move? I want to find out why. Why do we want to change their current situation? Why do we want to stop renting? Why do we want to get out of the apartment they're in? Why do we want to get out of the rental house? What financial benefits we're going to move? And then I want to find out all the things they will get from moving. How's that going to make them feel? What's that new school district going to do for their kids? What's that going to do for their savings? I want to get into all those benefits. So I'm going to remember, just like any needs analysis and any listing appointment, I always want to tap into motivation. And that doesn't mean I'm just going to say, hey, why do you want to move? And they're going to give me an answer because I want to get in that school district. Most of you would just stop right there. And the most of you that I'm referring to are the ones that don't take many listings because or sell much real estate. Because good agents that sell a ton of real estate notice you don't stop there. We go way deep into motivation. I want you to spend at least another 20 minutes on motivation. I want to know all the reasons it's better for you if we buy the house or list the house. I want to know about school. I want to know about your grandparents. I want to know how it's going to make you feel. I want to know the emotional responses of each member of your family. How's it going to make your son feel? How's it going to make your daughter feel? How's it going to make your grandparents feel? How's it going to make you and your wife feel? I want to know how every benefit, if you're closer to the beach, I want to know what that does from you. How does that make your day different? Why? Because I'm bringing all of those reasons they were initially motivated back into the forefront of their brain, which is where I need it to make the right decision. They need to have confidence and remember why they got here. If you're going to make someone walk over coals to get some big reward, if you're going to motivate anyone to do something difficult to get the results they want, if you're going to be a coach, if you're going to be a trainer, if you're going to be a positive influence in someone's life, you need to learn how to motivate them, which means you need to know how to tap into motivation. You need to know how to get them to do something uncomfortable to ultimately get the results they want. And right now it takes courage, and a good agent can tap into motivation to give them courage. So we have to find out why they want to do this and get them to remember that again, Daniel. Then we're going to scare them a bit. I just took them down the path of pleasure. That's the pleasure path. This is all the things you're going to get from this that are pleasurable to you, that are good. Now we're going to go down the path of pain next, right? Now we're going to say, what happens if you aren't able to buy a house? And you have to stay in this apartment, and you have to stay in this school district, and you give up, and prices keep going up. Well, what if prices aren't going up? Blah, 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 blah. That's where I'm going to pull out my graphs, right? My magical graphs. That's what I'm going to say. Well, I'm pretty sure they are. As you can see, the history of home prices, they tend to go up. So if the goal is to rent forever, I'd say let's hold back. But if you isn't your goal to buy a home at some point in your life? I'm just going to sit. I'm going to let silence do this. Is the goal to ever buy a home? And if they say yes, which they're going to say, I would say, so on this graph, wouldn't it be better to be closer to the left than the right if you were buying a home? That's why I know it's better. The best time for you to buy a home is right now if we can pull it off, right? The best time's right now if we can pull it off. I mean, if we have to scratch, claw, cheat, and steal, borrow from, Peter, Paul, Mary, and the mom, we're going to do it to get you in right now to get the cheapest price. And I'm going to do whatever I can to fight and get you in there, because I don't want you. It's up to you to pick your goals. But if your goal is to buy a home, it's my job to do the best job I can financially for you. And there's almost no doubt that the best time to buy a home is now. The likelihood, and of course I've shown them my other graphs and all that. I mean, in all likelihood, we have every expert on the planet saying housing prices are about to start skyrocketing and continue to skyrocket over the next several years. It's just going to be harder and harder to get into a house. So I'm going to do whatever I can to get you in right now, if that's your goal. I mean, do you still want to take your kids over to your grandparents' house and be able to walk the kids into that new school and be able to go play on the beach at night? If you still want all those things, now's the time to get it. Are you sure now's the time you want to walk away from all those dreams? I've got to give them motivation. I've got to show them the score. Here's your pleasure, here's your pain. If you back out, it's pain. If you go forward, it's pleasure. I need you to get the courage to go forward. I might even tell someone I'm doing this. I may even put my hands out here. Going the other way is pretty depressing. So we've got to do a needs analysis. We listen to their needs, exactly what Dave said. We reassess their motivation. Give me the pleasure and give me the pain if we don't. And then we ask them to make a choice. So that's what we do, a re-buyer consultation or a buyer re-consultation. When our buyer's coming off the hook, if they're going to back out or they're saying, you know what, I'm done. We're just going to wait. No more properties. I'm tired of this. I'm not writing any more offers. Man, we get back in front of them and we re-tap into motivation. We light that fire again and we do it for them. And that's why you've got to believe. Do you see how I'm about to jump out of my freaking skin? You need to jump out of your skin. You got to bring the energy, guys, because they're frustrated and they're down and they have to see you're going to fight for them. You got to say, hey, we got to do this. You got to bring them up. If you run a real estate team, this is what you got to do with your buyer's agents right now. You got to bring them back up. Make sense?
You know, I love what you say before too, because you talking about the buyer consultation. That it's very important to find the motivation of the buyer in this market right now. And what you touched right now, talking about refresh the motivation with the buyer. Because in this market, we don't do that. We dismiss the buyer confidence. And the other thing when I hear, I don't like to say to my client, we don't have the inventory. We are short the inventory. That's for me. That's a no-go approach, because what I explained to my client, you go 1 year ago, we had the same inventory that we have right now, but the interest rate, they are very low. The more buyers there on the market right now than 1 year ago. That's what happened in this market right now. So to explain to my client, hey, we are in a very competitive market right now, and we have to do the best and put the best offer. And the other thing, to buyer agent, pick the buyers you can work. Buyer, they have the money, the extra money, then you can put those offer 30 or 40,000 over asking price. Because really, it's hard right now for everyone. You always want those buyers, the budget is not large, like they don't have a retirement 401k plan, or they don't have the money. How are you going to compete over there? To be honest, we cannot beat taxes over there showing property and no open escrow or no have the opportunity. Oh, I love what you say, refresh the motivation, one, and the pleasure and the pain. That's something, if we don't do it, they are not going to believe in us. They're thinking, oh, it's you, the one cannot find the property for me. Oh, great point.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I agree with what you said. I think, by the way, what's your name? I couldn't even tell who was.
Alberto.
Alejandro? I couldn't hear that.
Alberto, Alberto.
Oh, Alberto. Okay, got it. Thanks, Alberto. Appreciate it. I love what you said there when you said you can't tell them that you don't have any inventory. And boy, that's just, you got to watch the words you use, because it's just not true. Guys, we've had more inventory than we've ever had. It's just selling so fast. Okay, so don't say that, because if you tell people we don't have any inventory, that's like we have nothing to choose from. So why even buy right now? Because there's nothing to choose from. But our sales volume is up in America, okay? Our sales volume is up. And if sales volume's up, that means it takes more listings to get sales volume up. So if sales volume is up, that means their listings are up. That means there's more listings. And if there's more listings, yes, there's more buyers, so they go in 2 seconds and they sell with multiple offers. But that is a much more positive and truthful statement to say, hey, rather than say there's no inventory, just say, hey, we've got lots of inventory, but the buyer demand's out of control, so it's ultra competitive to the point where we're getting an average of 15 offers on every single house or whatever it is in your area. So we have to be competitive. That puts it in a more positive life. Like everybody wants this amazing diamond and everybody's fighting over it. We need to get aggressive with it. And we can't be passive. So we need to know your motivations. But if you say something like there's no inventory, woe is me, man, this is a sales gig, guys. You're in real estate, which means you're in sales. You gotta learn to motivate. You gotta learn to watch the words you use, because you can't take your mopey, I'm in the business, oh my gosh, this is such a hard market, and spill that poison over onto your clients. Once again, hang it up if you're gonna be negative all the time. Hang it up. We got tons of agents. If you're gonna be around and be upset and depressed all the time, it's just not a good, sales isn't for you. I'll tell you that right now. So we got to learn to select our words carefully and try to keep it as a positive home buying experience as possible. And here's why it's positive, guys. If you want to know why it's positive, this is the best market to buy a house in. I mean, in my opinion, I can't imagine all these other things that bother other people. They don't bother me because I'm pretty experienced at buying houses. So I don't get all emotional about if I miss out on an offer or something like that. The pros don't get emotional. Why is it the best to buy a house? Well, let me show you why it's the best to buy a house. Oh, did I show you this graph? It's because if I freaking buy a house here, it's gonna instantly go up in value to here, and I make lots of money and I'm rich. So if you're all crying and stressed out about making $100,000 in 1 year off the increased equity in your house, you're right. Maybe this isn't a great market for you. It's so stressful. I have to write 3 offers. Oh no, just made $100,000. Make sense? So that's the neat thing, buyer. If you buy a house now in May, by October, you're gonna make $50,000. That's more than you probably make every year in your job. Like, that's what happens. Like, that's pretty positive. In a market when you have time and there's lots of inventory, you don't make $50,000 in your first 6 months of home ownership. So what do you like? A little bit of stress for a couple weeks, writing 3 or 4 offers and being rejected, or making $50,000? Because you can't have both. Which market you want? I like this one. Make sense? So educate people. It's all about the perspective. I'm changing your perspective right now You need to change theirs to make your client aggressive. If your client gets aggressive, they get their house, which means they get their dreams. You, by upping your skill development with regards to the dialogues you use, can help people achieve their freaking dreams. So change your perspective, change your client's outcome, okay? Thoughts, questions. I know I'm being dramatic. You guys should all be used to that by now. I live in the world of dramatic. I flourish in it. Okay. Any other thoughts? Anybody want to add anything to that?
It's not dramatic. It's not dramatic. It's passion.
Passionate. That's right. The word passionate is so often the excuse for the insane. It really is. If you, Albert, have you ever noticed that? Like the people, it's funny Walter says that because I was thinking it right when he was saying it. Because when people are highly dramatic, typically you don't want to work with them because there's drama all the time. And they always defend themselves by saying passionate, but I'm passionate. Have you noticed that?
Not until you mention it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've noticed that. When someone says I'm very passionate, I'm always like, ooh, that's a red flag. And I tend to be when I speak. I hope, and I used to be pretty dramatic dude, but I hope I'm not anymore. I just talk with a lot of flair. I communicate passionately. Let's put it that way. So anyway, that's great. I think we're kind of at a spot here. I'd love to hear some other things you guys are doing. Oh, I see something. Benny actually brought it in here. I've got to remember to look over here. If a client says my house is paid off, is it a good idea to get a loan on my house to buy the second property as an investment? What should I say? Their house is worth like 1 million. I mean, I say yes. I mean, I think, yeah, you could take a loan out on that. I think anytime right now that if you invest in more real estate, it's a good idea. I really do. I believe that all of you should go buy real estate right now, as much as you can buy. I just believe that. And I'm doing it too. Like I'm always buying real estate right now. I just, I'm believing in my own hype. I really do. I believe that the market's going to go up. I believe values are going to go up. I believe supply and demand are going to stay out of whack for a long time. I believe it. I think most major investors in this world, the biggest investors in the world right now, believe it too. I mean, Warren Buffett's all over NBC and CNN and CNBC talking about how Berkshire Hathaway as a holding company is just putting everything into buying residential real estate. All the major hedge funds are doing it now. All the major real estate investment trusts are buying like mad. So follow the smart money. So that means you should buy as much real estate as you can. But that doesn't mean number of properties either. I mean, it means trading up. I mean, if you have $400,000 of debt in an $800,000 property, you've got $400,000 in real estate equity. If you can then sell that property and buy a $2 million property and then have $1 million in equity, you now have 2.5 times as much real estate, which will appreciate at a higher rate, even faster. That's called a hedge against inflation. That's why they call them hedge funds.
Hey, Brian, I got a quick question.
Yes, Samuel.
So I've had some clients say that because the state might be opening up in June 15th or somewhere around June, they're waiting for the foreclosures. How do we respond to that? Okay, so I'll tell you one. Okay, so you're talking about the state of California opening up. In a lot of states, just let you know, I think New York now said they're opening up. I've heard quite a few opening up in June, July, things like that. So they're saying, okay, once that happens, in theory, sometimes these moratoriums on foreclosures are going to come out. Just to let you know, there aren't that many foreclosures. There never has been. Okay, we're talking about tens of thousands in a world where we're dealing with millions of sales. Okay, and of those original loans that were deferred about a year ago, we started with tens of thousands. Okay. Since that time, first of all those people had all kinds of appreciation in their house, right? Because housing values have been going up every single year, right? Again, it's really important to show and not tell. So you'll see me do a lot of that. Okay. I'm going to do more of it right now. So you can see how housing values have been going up every single year. 11.5, 5.7, 6.8, 4.4, 5.7, 5%, 4%. And then the last 2 years, 2019 and 2020, 2020 and 2021, we had 9% in 2019, and we're projecting 10%. That's what all the major people are like NAR and the mortgage bankers are predicting. I'm predicting 15, 20% this year. I think it's going to go through the freaking roof. I think 10% is light now. But you can see that's how much, prices are going up in value. So if you started to defer here, the value of those homes have gone up 20%.
So why would you let your house go into foreclosure when you can sell it and make a ton of money? I mean, it's going to take a real moron. I mean, a real freaking moron to go all the way through the laborious foreclosure process and have no one tell him the whole time that he could sell it and make tens of $1,000s of minimum. Like, how are you going to have blinders on that you never pick up on the fact that you could have just sold the thing rather than let it go?
I was kind of talking about buyers. Buyers are saying they're going to wait for foreclosures to come out.
Oh, okay. So okay. Well, I'm telling you, they're not going to come out because of what I just said. Can you imagine? Let's just take one city. Let's take okay. So first of all, there's 10,000 foreclosures, out there. Let's say the people that are in default on their loans has decreased since last year by something of an average of, I think it's something like 60%. So there's very few around anymore. Okay. And I don't have a chart for that. I'll get one though. I'm sure I'll make one because I keep seeing it on the news every single day, how there's fewer and fewer people in default. So those are going away. And I can't believe, I honestly don't think there's going to be 20 of them that hits the market in the country because it's going to take 20 of the least intelligent people on the planet. But let's say we could go back in time and all those people went into foreclosure. I honestly think if we had 20,000 listings hit LA, just the city of LA alone, they'd all be gone in like 2 weeks. I mean, they'd be gobbled up. If not by people, by hedge funds, real estate investment trusts, by everybody. I mean, they'd be all over the place. I heard Felicia say something.
I was just going to say, I used to work for Bank of America doing foreclosures and short sales back in 2007, 8, that time frame. Why would anybody do a short sale or foreclosure in this market to begin with? Sell your house. There would be no reason to have foreclosures or short sales in this market, because even if you're under the market or you haven't paid your mortgage in a whole year, you would still have enough equity in your home unless you just bought it. No. That could be the only ones that I would see that would be having that situation.
Oh, it's never going to get there. Right. The bank's going to offer to buy it and flip it themselves, or the bank's going to educate you to sell it. Or if that doesn't work, trust me, at ICC, we coach a lot of the highest producing teams in the country, and all they do is hawk over the notice of default lists. They are going to call and flip these things long before it goes into default. I'll tell you right now, they will be purchased long before the bank even gets to them. Because if someone goes 30 days in default, they're getting 100 calls from these major flipping institutions. So there's no way in hell this is happening. It's just not going to happen. So again, when they say this kind of stuff, it's just not real. It's pipe dreams. It's people just having unrealistic expectations, and we have got to let them know it's not going to happen. And you can tell them, Samuel, that you're in class after class where people like me are educating you that it's not going to happen. It'd be gobbled up. Those foreclosures would have 20 offers on them. They'll sell so high above market value, it's unbelievable. But they'll never get to the market.
I just put a graph in the chat. It's from calculatedrisk.org. That's one of my favorite economics blogs that I track stuff like foreclosures. And it shows the number of homes in forbearance and delinquency versus the Great Recession. And if you can see, I don't have the screen share. You can screen share it if you want. But the important thing to understand is number one, there's nowhere near the number of people that are in any kind of forbearance program. And the data shows that right now it's going down so quickly, we'll be back to where we started in about 4 to 5 months in terms of the total number of people who are in some kind of arrangement with their mortgage.
Pull it up for you. So this is the graph we're showing. Look at how few are going into the foreclosure process. We're always going to have some people going in, right? But this is when everybody, this was the Great Recession, and you can see this is what was happening when people started deferring, and it's just trending down like mad right now. Okay. And the number of 90 days was long because they got to extend forever without being foreclosed upon. So you can see 30 and 60 days dropping down too. Everything's going down right now. So everything's dropping.
Yeah, trending down without the inventory ever hitting the market, by the way.
Correct. They're not going over.
It's self-repair. Just getting, having a phone call with the bank and repairing the relationship.
That's exactly right. So again, I will throw this little graphic. Thank you,
Brian, can I ask you a question? This is Desiree, by the way.
You bet, Des. Go for it.
Over here. So there are NODs out there, and maybe some people don't have that plan B. Mm-hmm. What would you suggest, or what would that dialogue be to have with them?
Well, first of all, you got to get the list, right? You can go, there's a company called Property Radar. where you can get a list of everybody who's in notice of default. You got to pay for that, but it's called Property Radar, and it gives you it used to be called Foreclosure Radar back in the day. And I mean, I'm talking to California folks for the most part. So there's different companies for different states, but you're looking for notice of default lists in your deed of trust states, your mortgage states. You're just looking for default. And in those scenarios, you reach out to them and just let them know, hey, you came up on our notice of default list. And we did some homework on your property, and, we'd be willing to purchase your property from you, which means you need to have an investor. You got one right here. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people on this call that would say the same. You get a few investors ready so you can say that honestly. Or B, we think we can sell your property and net you quite a bit of money that way too. We'll either buy it or sell it. So it's always good to have a few investors to say you buy it.
This is Jacob here. I have a question when dealing with buyers that have an investment and growth mindset. So I have a buyer that has property. They're already a homeowner. They purchased their property, and they have they owe about $230 on it. They have about $100,000 to $120,000 equity on it, and they're contemplating right now between whether or not they sell their existing property to upgrade into a larger purchase price and hopefully ride that growth percentage exponentially on that larger purchase price home, or whether or not they protect themselves by buying a home that's a little bit more affordable, maybe equal, maybe $300,000, $350,000, and go the multiple property route. What would you advise a client that has a focus on that, trying to ride this wave right now, but also to protect them because they're just, an everyday person that's not making an exponential amount of money, maybe like a combined household of like 110,000 roughly?
Well, I think you got to show them the math, and again, I don't know what these prices are in your particular areas, and that makes a big difference on cash flow. But there's two reasons you buy property, right? You buy it, the poor man's bet is appreciation. Want to buy low and sell high, right? That's the poor man. And then the savvy investor buys for cash flow. So it's got to cover itself, right? I like the idea that they should definitely either buy up or they should buy multiple properties. There's no doubt, because that's buying more real estate. And buying more real estate will run their budget tight, yes, because they have their money invested working for themselves, right? So when you buy real estate, it's not like buying a boat or a car. Those things depreciate in value. When you buy more real estate, you're investing your money. It's like putting it away in a CD or in an IRA or in a mutual fund. It makes you run a tight budget, okay? Because you can't access that money. It's invested. So you have to live lean because your money's invested for the future. So when you say protect themselves, be careful with your words. The way you protect yourself is invest. And then you run a tight, lean budget. Okay, that's number one. Now, which one is better? That's going to be tough. We're going to have to run the numbers. So I like to show, not tell. So I'm going to run those numbers. First thing I'm going to say is, okay, you could buy more real estate and you're going to have this monthly payment because you bought a more expensive house. You're investing in more real estate because you're buying a higher price point. So you have more invested, which means if housing prices go up by percentage, you're going to have a higher amount of growth because 10% of 800,000 is a lot more than 10% of 300,000. So you'll make more money if you buy the $800,000 house, for example. So I like that. However, it might be better if you buy two $400,000 houses. And then I would look at the other $400,000 house, find out what the mortgage, taxes, insurance are and other costs, and then what you could rent it out for or Airbnb it for, and find out your cash flow. If it covers, I like that even better because now you got cash flow and appreciation. However, you do sacrifice some lifestyle because you're living in a $400,000 house versus an $800,000. That's got to be their call, in my opinion.
Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, but they need to be able to make an informed decision. So you have to walk down that analysis with them. So you've got to show them, here's all your expenses for the $400,000 rental. Here's what we think we could rent it for. Might want to call a property manager. Here's what it could be rented for. And here's how much you would make or lose every single month by having them pay your mortgage for you. And you would stay in your 400,000 price range versus the lifestyle you would get from just putting it all into an $800,000 house. They have to kind of make that decision, I think, on lifestyle. But you line out all the finances for them so that they can make a clear, quick, confident decision. Because you got to have them make that decision. Because if they make that decision, they'll go forward strong. because you cannot go forward weak in this market, like deciding whether you're going to buy something or not. You can't be halfway as a buyer in this market. You got to go. You got to go get it. You got to want what you want. You got to go get it. Great question, Jacob. That's a really solid one. All right, guys. Well done. I mean, great stuff today. Seriously, really good stuff. Thank you for all the contributions, all the questions, all the thoughts about different buyer scripts in this low inventory market. Let's keep it going. Tell a friend to get on here too, because I think we are really staying in front of this, talking about different ways we're writing offers and different ways we're using scripts and dialogues to educate our people. So let's keep it going, gang.